Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to Step Back Tonight for today, November 23rd, 2021. I'm your host, Tristan. Hey, how's chat going? Hello. So, who we got in the chat tonight? We got Glitch42, Saad, Sakwani, cool. Lemons884, Inachu, Dr. Gearswell, Kiravi, Dan Hetfield. All right. Hello, friends. My name is Tristan, and welcome to Step Back Tonight. Let's just, yeah. I am the host of the YouTube channel Step Back, which is a thing I do. I also am the co-host of the podcast It's Probably Not Aliens, in which a new episode came out today. So that's fun. I stream on Mondays and Tuesdays. On Mondays, I do the Monday Discourse with Mia Mulder. That goes from noon till 2 Eastern. And on Tuesdays, I do Step Back Tonight, the show you're watching right now, which goes from 7 till 9 Eastern time. So that's the main thing. I go by he, him pronouns. And if you want to support my work, you can either go to patreon.com/stepbackhistory and support the channel for as little as 84 cents a month with a yearly subscription and see videos early. And also, if you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime subscription per month to support a creator that you like. And if you choose Step Back, I'll be very grateful. And if you have a little bit of money that you want to spend, bits, super chats, and, Twitch subscriptions are all welcome and appreciated. As far as content, my latest video, which came out last week, is on Chile and cybersyn and all that kind of fun stuff. My next video, which I just wrapped up research on yesterday, so I'll be getting into writing and filming, hopefully, maybe next week sometime, is on... It is... Why am I blanking? Holy shit. I know things. I know my own work. I know the videos that I was working on today. It's on... Oh, yes. Kyle Rittenhouse and superstructure, base, and system justifying beliefs. Yeah. So that's what's currently in the hopper. I have some questions for tonight, probably a lot of questions for tonight, but I'm going to be putting a link in the chat, which is for submitting questions for future streams, or tonight in case I run out. I hang on to them for like a month. This is the last day that I can really say that. And so yeah, it'll be fun. But yeah, I hang on to them, so just stick around for streams and you'll eventually have your question read. Yeah, but that is... I'll just give you guys a little bit of more of a picture of Phoebes for a bit. That's the opening spiel. How we feeling in chat tonight? Is there a regular schedule of when Step Back Tristan streams, or is it seemingly random? I just Google Step Back History and sometimes I see it. I stream on Mondays and Tuesdays. But if you want to watch my old streams, they are all on my channel page. If you go to the playlist, there is a playlist of all of my previous streams. So if you find yourself wanting to watch an old stream, you can just go on in there and watch what you want. Want to see you live, as I did a live stream featuring one of your conspiracy videos. Hope you don't mind, but I really appreciate your nuances. Try to keep a fair use, though. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, that's fine. Hopefully it was good entertainment for your audience. Yeah. Isn't this cat wonderful? I'm like, I want to progress the rest of the show, but this picture of Phoebes is just too perfect. You guys can notice there is a blep. There is a blep detected. And I saw this last week, and I like had to take a picture of her. So that's certified blep. Yep. It is great. Looks like Ed Catwell and Spencer lost their case regarding Unite the Right, so that's pretty good. Yeah. That is true. That is good news. I've been told that their defense was very awful. So. The dominoes are falling. Alex Jones, Spencer. Thankfully, maybe James Keefe will be next. Ooh. Yeah, I heard Alex Jones is going to have to pay like a fuck ton of money to all those people who he led a harassment campaign against at Sandy Hook. Isn't that wild? Sometimes good things happen. It's very strange. I'm not used to this. Oh, a cute ass kitty. All right. Let's move on from admiring my photography of the blep cat. A cop in Kansas was convicted for killing a black person the day Rottenhouse got off. All right. Well, that's something. Thing about Jones is whether he'll actually pay up. If he doesn't pay up, doesn't he go to prison or something? That'd be wild. Please let the cat speak. Stop taking up all the conversation space. Oh boy. She's actually... Ugh. She's actually a very quiet cat. First, that's number one. Number two, I gave them dinner right before I started streaming. So they are downstairs wolfing down canned meat at the moment. So... all right. Didn't they also say that they're calling in a whole bunch of Donald Trump's... Actually, that's a story that we'll get to in a little bit. But I know that... what's his name? Steve Bannon is now like being called upon by the January 6th Commission. So we'll see where that goes. And yeah. Would I ever do a charity stream? I mean, I'm not against it. I have a feeling that my channel's not really big enough to raise a significant amount of money for a charity stream. So, like, if there was a charity or a thing that I really wanted to do something for, I'd probably try to talk to one of my... I'm like, Step Back isn't that big of a channel, all things considered. But I am blessed with a very good Rolodex, and I know a lot of YouTubers who are much more popular than me, and so I would be more likely to get a one of my larger YouTuber friends to do a charity event. Ooh. Would I ever do a presidential ranking? I don't know what I would do because there's like every single president is a war criminal is the thing. Like you're really splitting hairs on degrees of shittiness. Guess you could take like what? Like Lincoln ending slavery is like, you know, buys you a lot of points. So that's maybe like that's one. And maybe FDR for the New Deal, and that's it. Well, if you're gonna ignore the Twitch chat, then I am too. I'm not ignoring the Twitch chat. What? I am not ignoring any Twitch chat. I have both chats open. I can see both. All right. Alex Jones is now being spoken to about January 6th, if I'm not mistaken, which I defo could be. That'd be awesome. All right. There's basically like not a good president. I can't think of any that are not terrible in one way or another. Basically, to be president of a country, you have to essentially sign on to doing some of the worst things that a human being can do to other human beings. So, as an anarchist, I would say that the problem was the idea that we think we should be having presidents. All right. I gotta stop yawning. I don't know why. When I start streaming, like I'm perfectly fine, and then I start streaming, and then I just can't stop yawning for some reason. It's probably because I closed the door. Maybe if I turn the fan on, I'll be better. Because I've been told that heat can sometimes cause you to yawn. Alright. Let's do this. So the news is a little sparse this week, and I decided to distinguish between articles that I want to read, like actual articles that I want to read, and just some headlines that are important. So let's do this. Let's do this. So the first story I got here is that the RNC apparently was using legal party funds to pay for Trump's personal legal bills because he's getting... apparently there's a whole bunch of investigations going on into Donald Trump's business affairs in New York City, or in New York. And he's paying for his legal bills through that with, like, RNC money, which I think is fucking hilarious. So that's good. It's amusing that the RNC is still on the bill for this guy. Next, we got that. Oh yeah, this is a thing that's kind of ongoing. Is that there's a mass emigration of Belarusians into Poland right now, and yeah, they threw stones at the Polish border guards while attempting to destroy the border fence in order to break through the Belarus-Poland border. Guards respond with water cannons and tear gas. Oh boy. Polish ministry accuses the Belarusian army of aiding the attacks along Poland's borders. This feels like a really big thing that is on the horizon that is not getting a whole lot of media attention, but I feel like it's a thing we should be paying attention to. So there's that. And let's see what else we got here. Oh, this one will also... There's been some good news this week, it looks like. Look at this. So Juan Guaido's opposition party to freaking Morelos. Not Evo. I was thinking Evo Morales. Oh, freaking why? Oh my god. Nicolas Maduro. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Words seem to just completely fail me today. I apologize for that. I have no idea why. Just words are not happening. Yeah. So Nicolas Maduro's government had a huge victory in the regional elections in Venezuela this week. Actually, I think this happened like only a couple days ago. But that is the big thing. So, but Juan Guaido has taken and his party has taken a huge loss, which always makes me very happy. Yeah. And yeah, next up is Ukraine is warning of combat preparedness of separatist forces in eastern Ukraine as the Russian military presence on the border builds up, warning of a potential new conflict. The separatists began mobilization of reservists yesterday. So yes, this is the eastern Ukrainian separatists who mysteriously have lots and lots of military equipment from Russia have been amassing on the Ukrainian border, or at least in the part of Ukraine that they control. And They're calling in reservists, which makes people think that a sort of like what's it called? Like a separatist group invasion of Ukraine could be underway in the next little bit. In which case they might do a sort of Crimea type situation where they will force with violence themselves into becoming a break off of Ukraine and then would join Russia. So, because that's what happened. That's what happened in Crimea, and it could happen again. So that's awful. Just turns out that there are countries that are bad that are not just the United States. So that's that. The Belarusian refugee crisis. Isn't Russia and Belarus just trying to throw refugees at the European Union to make some kind of nightmare scenario? I mean, that's very conspiratorial thinking. And also, I don't know why refugees should not create a crisis is the answer. Maybe there's just borders are a fiction, and maybe just don't do that. I don't know. Maybe if they send refugees, you just take in refugees. Jeez, it's not like Europe doesn't have the money for it. So that's I had plans to visit Crimea, but Russia invaded before I was going. Crimea looks so beautiful from the videos I've seen. That is true. The Black Sea in general is a very pretty place. It'd be nice to go sometime. What subject we on? We just started talking about the sort of rumblings that there could be a invasion of Ukraine by Russian-backed rebels in the next few days. This report that Ukraine is getting ready for a war based on behavior seen at the border with these sort of Russian-backed separatists. This report came out today, so we'll see what happens. Ukraine about to get rocked if that happens. Yeah, I don't know what their I don't know. Like, my guess is that if this does happen, it's probably going to be a situation in which these regions that have been fighting with Ukraine for autonomy or independence for several years now, like we're almost like, we're closing in on a decade since this conflict broke out. They would separate into their own country. And then probably, much like with Crimea, would probably join Russia. Have I been following the Chilean election? Only a little bit. So the Chileans do a 2-round election. And if I remember correctly, the sort of like far-right candidate and the far-left candidate sort of won the first round of the presidency. And that in mid-December, they're going to go back to the polls. And it was a close election for them. Like, I think in the first round, the far-right candidate was like at 27%, and the left-wing candidate was at 25%. So the left-wing candidate's going to have to pick up some votes somewhere, but it's going to be tight either way, and that's going to be rough. And I don't know what's going to happen at that point. Chile's got a whole new constitution to get through. There's a lot going on in Chile that the next president's going to have to deal with in a big way. And so, how that turns out, I don't know. Is Venezuela still eating itself alive fiscally? I mean, it's being blockaded by... It's still being punished by the United States and their capitalist allies for daring to nationalize their oil industry. I don't know if that's eating itself alive as much as it is not breaking under pressure of the United States. But hey, sub to the show because you were on a NerdSync video. Well, thank you. I've actually been in 2 NerdSync videos. Everything with the refugee thing and the Ukraine thing are completely linked, planned from the start. I think calling it conspiratorial is minimizing a bit. Russia are experts at social engineering. I mean, the thing is, it would require a lot of steps. Like, the thing is, I think the refugee crisis that's going on in Belarus has to do with the fact that the president is handling COVID very poorly, and also is just like basically just cheated the last election. And yeah, things are like a real mess there. So that's that. I mean, Russia, if it was like due to like an natural gas shortage because Russia cut them off, that would be more of a thing to go with. But like, again, you're just that's just circumstantial evidence at that point. You don't have any like actual links connecting Russia with the Belarusian refugee crisis. If you come with some, then more power to you, but there's some new people in the chat. I'm not Vosh, and that means that I don't make claims about things unless I've done research and I know what I'm talking about. I don't just read the first paragraph of a Wikipedia article and then act extremely certain that I know something when I haven't done any reading. If you want to, I'm sure Vosh is streaming right now. He streams like 1,000 hours a day. You could go watch his content instead, and you'd probably have a better time. But until, I'm going to, I could probably, if this situation escalates, I'll probably end up coming back to this story and probably reading a bit more to see if there's any links, but I don't know. What I am going to talk about, though, is something that I do have some knowledge of, which is that there's a situation in British Columbia that's going on right now that I want to talk about, which is that there's a nation of indigenous people called the Wet'suwet'en people, and there's a oil pipeline being built through their ancestral territory that the Wet'suwet'en are opposing. They've been blockading the construction location for the better part of a year now, over a year now, and just a few days ago, the Canadian government sent the RCMP in to forcibly remove them so that they can build the oil pipeline. And at the same time, British Columbia was going through a massive climate change-induced flood that, one of the worst floods in British Columbia history. And instead, the RCMP aren't helping with disaster relief. They're helping with removing indigenous people from their land so they can, accelerate the building of an oil pipeline. So that's the sort of situation that it's in. But I want to read an article about it, so we're going to do that. Because this is a big story here in Canada, and I think you guys should know about it. And also, land back is good. And, fighting the white supremacist Canadian state would be a thing to go on. What's my opinion on Maduro? I can't say I agree with every leadership decision he's ever made, but he's definitely not he's definitely doing the hard thing, which is picking up from the legacy of Hugo Chavez, who was a goddamn legend, and on top of that trying to keep Venezuela together when the US is basically using all possible force to try and lead a right-wing, or try to force a right-wing dictatorship there so that they can get their all of the Venezuelan oil companies that have been nationalized out of American hands can be returned back to their corporate colonial masters. So, yeah, so the fact that Maduro is holding things together despite all of that, pretty impressive. I'm surprised that Trudeau isn't more sensitive to the optics, if nothing else. He is usually very optics heavy. I mean, yes, but also he's also very like inept as a prime minister. Like, what's it called? What's it called on the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, the first one in Canadian history, where we have our annual mourning of the horrors inflicted upon Indigenous children through the residential school system. He was on vacation. He was fucking in Tofino on a surfing trip. Have you ever had kratom? No. It sounds familiar. Oh man, okay. It's herbal extract, comes from Eliza Evergreen. Man, first result is a Mayo Clinic saying unsafe and ineffective. Okay. What is this shit? It's a drug, I imagine. Let's see. Safer, effective for treating a condition. Some people take it for managing chronic pain or treating opioid withdrawal symptoms or recreational purposes. So obviously it's got some drug side effects, right? What does it do? At low doses, kratom produces euphoric effects comparable to coca. Okay, so it's like cocaine. At higher doses, it produces opioid-like effects. The onset of effects typically begin 5 to 10 minutes. Some anecdotal reports describe increased work capacity, alertness, talkative, sociability, increased sexual desire, positive mood, and euphoria. Oh boy. Interesting. Interesting. What countries is it banned in? Canada. As of October 2020, Health Canada has disallowed marketing kratom for any use by ingestion and has taken action against companies marketing it for such purposes. Kratom could be marketed for other uses such as incense. Okay, well, interesting. I learned more stuff. Where are they, the NDP, in this? That's a very good question. Freaking Jagmeet Singh has been notably silent on the dispossession of the Wet'suwet'en people of their land in order to build an oil pipeline. So, yeah. Anyways, let's read this article about what's going on. The conflict over a natural gas pipeline project in northern British Columbia has swelled across the country, drawing intense attention to the Wet'suwet'en Nation. To outsiders, the organization and dual Wet'suwet'en power structures can seem confusing, and parsing who has legitimate authority over the decision to support or block the pipeline can be challenging. Along the pipeline's route, 20 elected First Nations councils have signed benefit agreements, but across the country, Indigenous groups have taken part in demonstrations and blockades to protest the project. Here is a guide of some of the main Wet'suwet'en people who have emerged as leaders, spokespeople, advocates, and opponents of the project, and how they fit into the nation's elected, hereditary, and corporate organizational structures. So this is important to note. One of the reasons why the government thinks that it's okay to build an oil pipeline or a natural gas pipeline through traditional, unceded Indigenous territory is because the elected leaders of the Wet'suwet'en people agreed to it. The elected leaders being the organizational body that the Canadian government set up and basically dismissed their traditional government and said, we're only going to deal with this body that we're making. So it's essentially a lapdog for white people. And so the actual traditional chiefs and such like that, the legitimate government of this nation have opposed it, and they've been blocking the pipeline. And yeah. Isn't BC NDP and other NDP groups really different? Yes, British Columbia at the provincial level is much more right-wing than the rest of the country because essentially British Columbia doesn't have a conservative party. The conservative party doesn't even run in the provincial level elections. So the Liberals are effectively a conservative party, which means that all of the centrist libs have joined the NDP. For the most part. I mean, the Liberals and the NDP are basically go back and forth over, getting those swing voters. It's a nice cover story for the live, though. See, they agreed to it, yeah. Note that there is the Wet'suwet'en First Nation, which has an elected chief and council, i.e. the government that the Canadian government forced upon them, and the broader Wet'suwet'en Nation, which includes both elected bands within the colonial system of governance and a traditional hereditary clan system, which has responsibility for a broader, unceded territory covering 22,000 square kilometers. So... yeah, like the Big Frog Clan, Small Frog Clan, Wolf and Bear Clan, Beaver Clan, and Firewood and Owl Clan. 5 of the 6 elected band councils within the Wet'suwet'en Nation have signed benefit agreements with the pipeline company Coastal GasLink, a subsidiary of TC Energy. The elected councils also include Witset First Nation, Skintai Nation, the Nitai Bunbra, and Tsil Kazko First Nation, and the Wet'suwet'en First Nation. Represents First Nations on reserves created by the federal government under the Indian Act. So there you go. So they are created by the government. Karen Oguntoes is a former elected chief of the Wet'suwet'en First Nation. She signed one of the agreements to approve the pipeline and remains a vocal supporter of the plan. In my heart, of course, Karen. In my heart, I know I'm doing the right thing. I've done the right thing for my people, and my heart is in the right place. Doubt. If our people are living in poverty, the way to overcome it is through proper training, trades, education, and a job. So here's the thing. This is the thing that happens in Canadian politics all the time. There's this idea, because like Canada's building fuck tons of these oil pipelines, because Canada's trying to get into a situation where we're not as dependent on the United States for trade. So they're building like this oil pipeline, another oil pipeline are meant to go to the Pacific coast so that we can increase oil trade with China. But there's this idea, and I was in like my family's from Saskatchewan, and I've been in Saskatchewan for a wedding, the opposite of a wedding, a funeral. I was at a funeral in 2019 for my grandmother in Saskatchewan, and they had an oil pipeline kind of built by their town, and I stayed in this hotel in the town that was very cheap because it was built to house all of those pipeline workers who were building the pipeline, but then the pipeline moved past the town, and now the hotel is completely empty. And once the construction of the pipeline is finished, the amount of jobs that it actually creates is minimal, but the amount of environmental damage that comes from these things regularly breaking down and spilling oil into the earth is constant. And what's it called? It corrupts and contaminates water tables and all sorts of stuff. If you're either really depressing or not depressing at all, they're all the same thing. I knew you were Canadian. You're rotund and polite. Good on you, guy. Well, thank you. Although I'm trying to get less rotund, but thank you. As I said, words are not working for me today. I don't know what's going on. So yeah, these pipelines do create, like, very few jobs. Like, I think the Keystone XL pipeline, the one that was going to be going from Canada down to Texas, the one that the United States had a whole thing about, and it eventually I think got canceled. That one was going to maybe create like a couple dozen jobs across the entirety of the continental United States. to maintain this pipeline. Like, it's nothing. The only quote-unquote jobs they're making and opportunities they're making are for construction work to build it, but that is a temporary project. And for that temporary project, you're basically increasing the export of increasing Canadian dependence on a resource that we should be, by all means, trying to get rid of as much as possible. We should be like, moving off of oil as fast as we possibly can, and instead we're building oil pipeline. So yeah. Oh, look, she's now CEO of the First Nations LNG Alliance, a collection of First Nations that are taking part in and supporting liquefied natural gas developments in BC. Oh. Man, those interests don't conflict at all. Dear God. And we come out with the hot take that fossil fuels are bad. Yeah, you think? How could you say something so true and yet so brave? So Troy Young runs a Wet'suwet'en-owned company. He's a general manager and director of Kaya Resources Incorporated, which is owned by a Wet'suwet'en First Nation Limited Partnership. Kaya Resources has a contract to provide pipeline-related work, including clearing, helo logging, road building, security, and first aid services, according to the BC Supreme Court injunction decision. Young's comments were included in the injunction decision. He argued a delay in the pipeline construction would have severe impact on the local Wet'suwet'en community and the Wet'suwet'en people. Huh. I wonder why this guy wants an oil pipeline being built. He's a fucking small business tyrant. Oh, boy. Is she Native or is she Métis? The Métis people typically live in more in Manitoba. So these people are these are what's it called? These are Indigenous people. Let's see. Gloria George, Darlene Glame, and Teresa Tate Day. Okay, let's see. So these people were stripped of their hereditary titles in recent years after creating the Wet'suwet'en Matrilineal Coalition. They held titles in Tsaayak, Sun House, Kasayak, Grizzly House, and Quenbec. I apologize, I do not speak Wet'suwet'en. House of the Fire, respectively, though their loss of title remains in dispute. Tate Day said the coalition was formed to set up a process for the hereditary groups to consider projects on Wet'suwet'en territory and negotiate agreements according to the injunction decision. The coalition has a board with 5 members, including George, Claim, and Tate Day, and 2 others, representing all 5 the Wet'suwet'en hereditary clans. A few house chiefs can't make decisions for our nation. Everyone in our nation is equal and has a voice and deserves to be heard. According to the Environmental Assessment Office, the Wet'suwet'en Matrilineal Coalition was not among the list of indigenous groups CGL had to consult with on the project. Oh boy. Can you amplify the screen? The only thing on the right side are adverts. Well, I don't know. I have an ad blocker, but sure, I can try to see what I can do. Where are you? Okay. That should be better. Here we go. All right. Keep in mind also to not make, like, what's it called? Indigenous people don't really use blood quantum as a way to measure membership in a nation. That's the kind of bullshit that, like, Elizabeth Warren was trying to push. And the whole, like, using how much blood, indigenous blood you have as a way to measure how much you belong to said nation is very much a Western imposition upon indigenous people. So... let's talk about this. All right. Against the pipeline. While the elected band councils have agreed to the pipeline construction, the hereditary chiefs have maintained opposition to the project. They assert that Wet'suwet'en territory has never ceded to the federal government. This is true. And that they have responsibility over it and the Wet'suwet'en people who aren't confined to the pockets of reserve governed by elected chiefs and councils. In 97, the Supreme Court of Canada affirmed Aboriginal title rights in Delgamuukw versus British Columbia, a decision that recognized Wet'suwet'en have a system of laws that predates colonialism. Hell yeah. All right. So these are the clans, titles, okay. The hereditary chiefs and their respective houses are nearly all represented by the Office of the Wet'suwet'en for the purposes of consultation with CGL and the representative. Blah, blah, blah. The nation is organized into 5 clans. With each clan, there are 2 or 3 houses. It's at the house level that chiefs hold hereditary titles. Each of the 13 houses also has various chiefs below the head chief, including wing chief, sub chief, and alternate chiefs. Currently, 4 of the House hereditary chiefs' positions are vacant, leaving 9 hereditary chiefs. 8 of the hereditary chiefs have clearly opposed the pipeline, and this group signed an eviction letter to CGL in early January, ordering workers off unceded Wet'suwet'en territory. The chiefs who signed the letter, this is all their names. So, Chief Namox has frequently served as spokesperson for the hereditary chiefs and has thus risen to prominence in media coverage of the issue. Oh boy. We do expect the RCMP and coastal guidelines to meet and discuss things, said Namox in early January, in the face of the injunction order and enforcement by police. We need them to understand that what they are doing is destroying our lands, our ecological sites, our burial sites, he said. They have no comprehension of how important it is to our people. Chief Woos has also played the role of spokesperson for the hereditary chiefs, especially when the issue in the question involves the land of the Grizzly House. Woos was part of the delegation that traveled to Ontario and Quebec to meet with members of other First Nations who have established solidarity rail blockades. This happened in like January of 2020. So, and oh boy, when they were blocking the railroads, goddamn were white people pissed. And the CBC ran some fucking poisonous articles about that. In a press conference after the meeting on January 21st, Wu spoke out against the police enforcement of the court-ordered injunction against the blockades in Wet'suwet'en land. We demand the Remote Detachment Community Industries Service office established by the RCMP on Wet'suwet'en territory without our consent be immediately removed, and that the RCMP are completely removed from our territory and cease patrols on our land. Out means out. We demand that all CGL activities cease within Wet'suwet'en territory while nation-to-nation talks are going. Yeah, you can tell that the rail blockades hurt because, oh boy, was the fucking white press just mask off. Like in 2021, they were trying to be all nice when they were telling stories about all of the kids who died in the residential schools, but they were just like mask off fucking fascists when it came to blocking their fucking treat deliveries. So yeah. we get a link for the article? Sure. Anyways. Chief Smugglegem is central to one of the 3 blockades or checkpoints created in opposition to the pipeline, along with the title of Sun House. Warner Naziel holds the hereditary title of Tugesti of... Should I really? Owl House. I don't want to butcher their language by trying to pronounce these things. He is one of the only 2 named defendants in the injunction against the Wet'suwet'en blockades along the pipeline route. Naziel helped set up an original blockade in 2012, according to the BC Supreme Court injunction decision, and assisted in the emerging group known as the Unistoten with trapping, hunting, gathering, and logistical support. Frida Hewson has served as a spokesperson for the Dark House and the Unistoten. She holds the hereditary title of Hauerkat within Dark House. Unistoten is a camp created by the Wet'suwet'en pipeline opponents to strategically reoccupy land along the pipeline route. It's associated with Dark House. Husan, along with Naziel, is named in the injunction as a central character in the opposition to the CGL pipeline. So, and Molly Wickham. I've heard of Molly Wickham. She's a member of the Gitdumden clan, who speaks with the group behind the Gitmten access point at 44 kilometers along the Maurice Forest Service Road. The BC Supreme Court ordered an injunction barring people from obstructing CGL workers at the camp, resulting in 14 arrests on January 9th. Soon after, Wickham coordinated the construction of a new camp at the 27-kilometer mark near the RCMP checkpoint. As directed by the hereditary chiefs, she's seen in a video posted on social media on January 19th, appealing to help from supporters. Come out, be self-sustaining, be dressed for the weather, come to 27th kilometer for a day, come to 27th kilometer for a few days, come and support us on the front line on Wet'suwet'en territory. According to the injunction decision, Wickham made public statements that the people occupying the camps were doing it to prevent CGL from completing the work required to get permits and authorization, and ultimately prevent the pipeline project from being completed. All right. Let's talk about Rob Alfred. Rob Alfred is identified in court documents as being associated with a group calling itself the Tsayu Land Defenders, which established one of the Wet'suwet'en camps along the pipeline right-of-way. Alfred holds the hereditary title Tsionti under the chief Namoks in Tsakenyek, Rafters on Beaver House, and is active on Twitter using the handle Show Me Kitties. Oh boy. This isn't just about a pipeline, it's about indigenous title, Alfred told CBC News. We wouldn't have this conflict if the government would step up and deal with this issue. I do wholeheartedly believe the project won't be completed as is. We all hope so, do we not? But yeah, these are... See, the thing is that this is unceded territory. Like, this isn't even, they're not even, like, really reserves. These are, like, this is a nation. They have never given their land to Canada. So the Canadian-imposed government that they work with makes no sense. If they want to start nation-to-nation relations with the Wet'suwet'en people, they should build an embassy. But, like, you can't just, like, say, I don't like your government because it doesn't let us abuse your resources, So we're going to make this other government and only deal with them. Like, if the Canadian government actually followed its own treaties that it agreed to, this would be an independent nation, but it is not. It's a literal invasion. They are invading the Wet'suwet'en Nation to build a pipeline through their ancestral territory that they have explicitly said they do not want to be there. Just fucking nuts, man. And with all of the shitty stuff that's been going on this week, this story kind of fell under the radar a little bit, unless you were in Canada. So I wanted to get some attention because, like, not a lot of Americans don't know about this situation unfolding in British Columbia, and I thought that it would be important to get that story out there. Anyways, so that's one article. The other one I want to write about, or the other article that I want to talk about today, is from the wonderful Substack, which is called The Sword and the Sandwich, which is by a wonderful journalist by the name of Talia Levine. And her Substack is great. She researches the far right. She's the author of a book called Culture Warlords, which was like one of the best studies of the far right I think that exists, by like actually like going into their online communities and writing about them. But she's written this article recently that's about the really troubling. She's this to preface this. She's also Jewish. That she's writing an article about the right-wing comparisons between restrictions on or vaccine mandates basically and the Holocaust. So that's going to be the topic of this article, about this weird case of right-wing people claiming that invoking the Holocaust to talk about vaccine mandates. Psychotech, thank you for sharing. Well, thank you. I hope it worked. He lived in Burlington. His daughter is your age, but went to different schools. We chatted about our former city in 2008 by YouTube message, and that has since been removed. Wait, what? Wing Zero. Where's data guy? Wing Zero, are you from Ontario? Because Burlington is the city I was born and grew up in. So, like, I lived in Burlington until I was like 20 years old. Or no, 21. I moved out when I was 21. But yeah, I know Burlington well. Hey, Meow Nyan, thank you for the 13... Your name is always so fun to say. Thank you for the $13.99 super chat. Hey, Tristan, how do you like Disco's season premiere? I thought a Bajoran Cardassian was as president made a lot of sense politically. You can answer this after all the more serious topics have been addressed. Well, before we get into this really dark topic about vaccine, what's called anti-vax people and the Holocaust, we can take a little bit of levity to talk about Star Trek Discovery, and that, yeah, it was fucking based. Yeah, I loved it. I'm very easy to please, as some of you will figure out, when it comes to nerd content. So I was pretty happy. I grew up there too. We never met in person. We chatted in 2008 via YouTube message. I live in Toronto now. Oh, so wait. I forgot that YouTube had messages. Man, that takes me back. So you must have known me from, like, the Tristan PJ YouTube channel then. Shit, that's old. God damn. I've been on YouTube for far too long. Thank you, Awesome Possum, for the bit. Many moons ago. Yeah, back in 2008 when I lived in Burlington. Holy shit. That was before I even started my undergrad. I was a very different person back then. Anyways, would you guys like to hear this article by Tally Levine, who's like probably one of my favorite journalists right now? Let's do this. She also, the reason why it's called The Sword in the Sandwich is because she collects swords. Good video on Cinco, friends. Saludos desde Chilito. Ah, muchas gracias. All right, let's look at this. Oh boy. Oh, this is going to be rough. Probably like a trigger warning for just the worst shit. All right. The perennial chorus of the conspiracy theorist is this. Did you know? Did you know? Did you know? Wake up. Did you know the COVID-19 vaccine has a microchip in it? Did you know that the mark of the beast, a conduit for 5G death rays, a bioweapon, an agent for population control? Wake up! The stance of the anti-vaxxer in particular, marinated in hyper-individualism and a rugged mythos of maverick bravery, is to hold themselves out as lions and not sheep, courageous dissenters to a genocide no one else can see. And they take it very literally. As you can see, not vaccinated for COVID. Holy shit. That is some bad fucking, that is some tactless posting right there. All across the country, from Anchorage, Alaska to Kansas City to the Bronx, protesters against COVID-19 vaccine mandate policies have chosen to don one of the more grotesque symbols of modern history, the yellow star used to identify Jews during the Holocaust, marking them out for extermination. In their loaded pastiche, anti-vaxxers commonly use Hebrew-style lettering to spell out messages like "no vax." Cut homemade star-shaped patches out of cloth and pin them to themselves and their families for social media consumption and to wear at protests and school board meetings. The appropriation first caught on among anti-vaxxers in 2015 when Dr. Robert Sears, a popular California pediatrician and vocal opponent of the anti-vaccine movement, declared that opponents of a state bill revoking non-medical exemptions to school vaccine policies would soon be forced to wear yellow stars. In the context of a worldwide pandemic, the analogy has gone global, appearing in legions of anti-vaccine memes as well as crossing the line into real life. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. I need not tell you that this comparison is offensive. It is obviously and staggeringly offensive to anyone with half a brain, let alone anyone like me still living in the epigenetic shadow of a genocide that killed more than a third of the entire global Jewish population. This isn't even the first time the yellow star has been implemented by the American right. It's been adopted by gun owners, right-wing pundits, suspended by Twitter, etc. Although the COVID-19 vaccine fracas is certainly the most widespread and wholesale embrace of this particular brand of specious and self-imposed victimhood. Yes, this is so fucking true. The right in general always is like trying to cry victim all the time when they cry victim because they're not allowed to oppress people, and then they're bringing this one up because they're not allowed to spread a virus. So that's fun. Dear God, like really, there's just absolutely zero self-awareness in this take here, or in this picture here. Holy shit. All right. To be fair, anti-vaxxers have been doing this thing since way before COVID. Yeah, we mentioned that at the beginning of the article. I've been trying to parse out why precisely this analogy is so compelling to the legions of anti-vaxxers who feel compelled to wear it proudly on their bodies. Is it simply a flair for the dramatic? A fault in an education system that, seeking to emphasize American heroics in World War II and in general, fails to look inward towards a myriad of examples of systemic oppression within this country, instead forcing those with a paucity of imagination to cast their gazes many decades back in time and across an ocean? Is the donning of yellow stars during lockdown protests the result of a victim complex nurtured tenderly in the bosom of Christian conservative America? Certainly, the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the Lutheran pastor and vocal anti-Nazi dissident, hung by the Reich in 1945, has an outside imprint on evangelical education. Or is it, in a primarily white-led movement, a compulsive need to seek historical exemplars thin on the ground in which the oppressed are perceived currently to be white? It's not just cheap, though. It's, as one commentator on the neo-Nazi website The Daily Stormer noted, a dilution, if perhaps unintentional, of a symbol of genocide. It is the crudest way of slapping an interlocutor in the face of the fountain of bad facts. Did you know? And through sheer outrage conveying the message, wake up! Let me see. In living memory, no less. Yeah. Although, it's almost out of living memory, but still, there are still Holocaust survivors alive, a few of them. As you may be able to tell, I've been winding up for a rant on this one for some time, not just because of the aforementioned epigenetic trauma shadow hanging over my life, or because my mother never had any relatives growing up because Hitler's goons fucking killed them all, or because my grandfather had night terrors for the rest of his life and spent long decades mourning for his lost brothers. Of course, there is no comparison between an extremely fucking safe and effective vaccine that I have gladly received not once but 3 times in the past year, along with tens of millions of my fellow citizens, and we are fine. And well, all that blood, the mass graves outside my grandmother's town, the wholesale destruction of a fractious and vibrant culture, etc., etc. I'm used to not putting too fine a point on it. Gentile nonsense about the Holocaust, fetishization and minimization at once. The ways Holocaust deniers at once erase the existence of history and long for it to recur. But I am, despite myself, angry. Yes, it's the puffery, the self-righteousness of anti-vaxxers who are straining empathy across the nation to the point where even healthcare workers find their reserves sapped. Yes, I am angry because my mother had a sister and she died in those cold woods. But it's also the specific perversity of this comparison, the comparison of efforts to stop a disease with a genocide in which people played such a crucial and central role. Did you know Anne Frank died of typhus? Maybe she's the one Holocaust victim whose name you know. She died of an epidemic typhus in Bergen-Belsen along with her sister Margot and about 17,000 others in that camp. Typhus is a louse-borne fever, called among other things war fever because it thrives only in conditions of extreme privation, where basic hygiene is impossible, lice are endemic, treatment unavailable or denied. It causes delirium, agony, a characteristic spotted rash, vomiting, and fevers of up to 108 degrees Fahrenheit. It kills 40 to 60% of those who are infected and untreated, more if those victims are weakened or malnourished. Of the 6 million Jews who died during the Holocaust, hundreds of thousands of them died of epidemic typhus in ghettos and concentration and labor camps, a condition that has now nearly been eradicated. The Holocaust saw the last mass outbreaks of typhus in Europe. Nowadays, typhus is easily treated through antibiotics, but the most common treatment, The antibiotic doxycycline wasn't invented until 1967. And even penicillin, the first mass antibiotic, was restricted to military use until 1945. Too late. Too late, certainly, for a deliberate campaign of biological warfare that saw a disease, preventable even then, seeded among the population to be annihilated. This was strategic and deliberate and designed to be confined to camps and ghettos. Preventing the spread of typhus outside the Jewish community was the nominal pretext in occupied Poland for any Jew found outside the ghetto to be summarily shot. What am I reading? It's an article by Talia Levine about the sheer fucking caucasity of anti-vaxxers, comparing them to Holocaust victims. Comparing themselves to Holocaust victims. Man, I just to say, Talia Levine doesn't fucking miss, and her articles are fucking fire every time. The German medical establishment was complicit in the Holocaust, full stop. It's not possible to deny this. The socio-medical idea of geomedicine, the cultural environment, and race are the primary determinants of health, was brought to the fore in the 1930s by the eager Nazi collaborator Dr. Heinz Zeiss, and used as a pseudoscientific pretext for Nazi ideas of, quote, racial hygiene. In Nazi propaganda, the Jew and the louse were synonymous, each viewed as an incubator of disease, parasites on the body politic. I just want to mention at this part here, this is why, what's it called? Never mind. I got confused. Gentile nonsense seems like a very useful descriptor. I agree. In practice, the Nazis deliberately engineered the conflation, setting up a cruel tautology. They created conditions in which Jews, overcrowded, starved, and fed on by lice, became diseased, and used this as proof that Jews were filthy vectors of disease. Germans were experts on delousing, having done much of this on this front to eliminate epidemic typhus in their own troops during the First World War. It was, in fact, the systemic and common presence of delousing tactics in German culture that enabled their cruelest deception at the camps, the false showers full of a deadly gas, Zyklon B, which was developed to combat lice in the first place. Thus, the presence of lice among the prisoners, the epidemic typhus that raged captive populations in their cattle cars and on their death marches and in their cramped and filthy barracks was not incidental. The withholding of preventative treatment was an act of war. It was deliberate disease, an aide-de-camp to the forces of death, alongside exposure and overworked and the chambers. But did you know there were those who tried to fight typhus among the Jews, who risked their lives to do so, specifically developing and smuggling a vaccine to those captive populations who hid the fever-ridden in attics and under beds so they wouldn't be shot by the Gestapo? There's a 2014 book called The Fantastic Laboratory of Dr. Weigel, which tells this true story of Rudolf Weigel, the Polish-German zoologist who created a viable typhus vaccine in a fantastic Rube Goldberg-esque process that involved injecting virus into the anuses of millions of lice. In his lab, he sheltered Polish mathematicians and resistance members and a few Jews, employing them to feed lice with their blood, degut the insects, and isolate the bacterium. In the fantastically beautiful and endlessly war-torn city of Lviv, Dr. Weigel inoculated members of the Polish resistance to the Nazis. Moreover, and at great risk, he smuggled tens of thousands of doses of his typhus vaccine into the Warsaw ghettos. He did not believe that the ghettoized were human filth, did not believe that their privation ought to condemn them to death by disease. Did you know? Did you know that there were others too? There were others who, having been captured and enslaved, were tasked with developing a typhus vaccine for the Wehrmacht. the Nazi troops on the Eastern Front, and who sabotaged its development deliberately at perpetual risk to their lives, and who made a true vaccine in secret and only gave it to concentration camp inmates. They were led by a former assistant of Weigel's, a Jewish biologist and philosopher by the name of Ludwig Fleck, in Block 50 of the Buchenwald concentration camp, beside Nazi doctors who performed barbaric and useless human experiments, whose sole goal was pain, and from which no learning has ever been extracted, castrating homosexuals, injecting cyanide into prisoners' hearts, shooting them with poison-laced bullets. Fleck and his compatriots slow-walked their work, attempting to grow the tetchy and difficult-to-cultivate typhus bacterium Rickettsia proescheti in the lungs of rabbits. Fleck had enough knowledge to create a true vaccine, which he did even as captive human subjects shrieked and prisoners died en masse outside the barrack walls. But the men and women of Block 50 Typhus Laboratory used the real vaccines only to inoculate fellow prisoners, comrades, and those at most risk. And when the SS demanded samples for quality control, the hundreds of liters of rabbit lung vaccine they generated otherwise was intentionally made useless. Although they ate the typhus-infected rabbits, their lungs removed and bodies boiled to sterility to survive. Did you know that they chose at daily and hourly risked their lives not to enable mass extermination and to save instead whatever unworthy lives they could? Did you know they realized the vaccine was viewed as a defensive weapon by the Nazi brass, and they withheld it, choosing instead to wield it on behalf of the defenseless? Did you know the secret history, the story of the yellow-starred people who inoculated themselves because they deserved to live, who saved whoever they could, who refused to be used as weapons to prolong the war that had killed their friends and families? Did you know that's why I'm angry at the people who adopt their false badges of craft store felt, their mendacious victimhood, why I'm so angry at people who adopt the mantle of persecution when asked to save their own lives and those of their neighbors? Because there are people for whom victimhood was never a fantasy, who chose bravely, who died in death marches, who died knowing vaccines work, and from whom they are withheld, and to whom they are given matters. Did you know my mother had a sister, and she died in the cold woods? Wake up. Holy fuck, man. It's like some fucking, like top levels of based in this fucking article. Holy shit. Talia Levine. So I'm going to actually give a link to her Substack because after reading this article, I'm going to start giving her money. And I think you should too, because then you get more of her goddamn articles. Sometime I read an article of hers earlier today that was basically like the history of the banh mi sandwich, and it's fucking fascinating. But yeah. That's wild. So that was an article that I definitely wanted to read on stream. So she's fucking based as shit. Like if you ever what's it called? Her I'll link her Twitter too. In chat. So if you are a Twitter user, then you can follow her because she's a good follow on Twitter too. Scant. All right. Whew. I don't understand Substack and how that works, but I'm subscribed now. Well, that's good. Yeah, Substack is like a website where you can pay money to get... It's like Patreon, but for journalists. And it's typically for like right-wing shitheads, but there's some really good ones on there too. My friend Jeremy's on there. I should probably start paying my buddy money for his articles. He covers Canadian politics and stuff like that, so... I've been on his podcast, what's it called? Big Shiny Takes a few times. So that's that. I guess we should probably get into questions. We got 45 minutes left in the stream, and look at all these questions. So I guess we should probably get started, eh? Okay. Whew. All right. Question number 1. I'm a political POW and I'm under house arrest in the United States. I was wondering if you knew anything about Novatore and what you think of him. I am reading one of his books to pass my time here in home jail. I don't even know who that is. Let me Google Renzo Novatore. An Italian individualist anarchist, illegalist, anti-fascist poet. Okay. Well, I can't really say what I think about if I know anything about him, because I'm like, everything I know right now, so I guess that doesn't really work. Whew. Much appreciated for reading that out. I'm glad you liked it. I started to feel her anger. She writes in a very conversational style that's very easy to read, which I really liked. All right, second question we got here is Sam from Texas. Would you rather live in the USSR after World War II in Stalin's death or in Putin's Russia? Most definitely post what's it called? Post-Stalin USSR. Like there's after the collapse of the USSR, there was like a decrease in average average money per person by like something like 40%. Like standard of livings fell drastically, and they still haven't recovered. And there are a lot of people in the Soviet Union who have nostalgia, or in Russia who have nostalgia for the Soviet Union. So, yeah. And also, oh yeah, keep in mind also Talia Levine wrote a book called Culture Warlords, which I definitely need to read now, on the American on far right communities on the internet. Yeah, do you want to live in the Soviet Union where you might have to wait in line for some groceries, or do you want to live in Russia where your kids will die from injecting whatever the fuck crocodile is into their veins? Alright. Next we got... What would you consider to be the peak of BreadTube, if any? I'd say it was spring 2019 when it seemed most people liked being called BreadTubers then. Like, I mean, like, the term? Yeah, I mean, the term started getting soured once, Gosh, I don't even know when it would probably start getting soured. Spring 2019 wouldn't be bad. Really, just, I think that it got ugly just because the community started to what's it called, to spill over into other stuff, you know, like it started to spill over into trying to claim people as part of this community that never belonged to it in the first place. And there was sort of a renaissance of left-wing creators back then. I mean, it's still going. I think there's like more left-wing creators now than there's ever been. It's just the term has changed now. I think most people would not claim it anymore. Plus now there's like Vosh, a left-wing YouTuber who sucks. So, and Peter Coffin, a left-wing YouTuber who sucks. Yeah. Crocodile is just horrible. Yes, it is. Yeah, isn't it called crocodile because when you inject it into your like if you inject it incorrectly, it will like make your skin like necrotize and it'll look scaly like a crocodile. If I remember, that's why it's called crocodile. What's my take on H Bomber Guy? He's based and he's great, and he has never made a mistake ever in his life. He's a beautiful druid who lives in the woods of Wales and comes out of the forest once every 6 months to give us a great video. Like, H-Bomber Guy videos are the kind of videos I watch when I'm about to make a video on my own because I just want to get inspired. Like, H-Bomber Guy might be one of the best YouTubers. I would consider it a personal point of privilege to make a video that was like, you know, that was of the sort of quality, especially in the area of like humor and stuff that he has made. I'm really jealous of YouTubers who are I'm really jealous of YouTubers who are very funny. Like, I'm always like jealous of Thought Slime. His videos are so good. And his sense of humor is just, like, knowing him in person, his sense of humor is just always on. It's just always snappy and it goes all the time. And I would kill for that kind of natural sense of humor. Which, like, I guess I can be funny, but I'm not great at, like, writing jokes is the thing. But, okay, but Orc Gang. Orc Gang is pretty great. You've made funny vids. Well, thank you. I just really love, like, the H-Bomber Guy and Thought Slime, like, effortless sense of humor that I really just love. Thought Slime is genuinely funny even when she's not trying. It's true. Like, he and I, like, play D&D together, so I get to hang out with him, like, 3 hours every week, and it's always great. H-Bomber Guy's anti-vaxxer videos and masterpiece, don't be jealous, though. Yeah, well, I always say, like, I made a joke about how every time an H-Bomber Guy video comes out, it always comes out right around the time where I'm starting to feel confident in my process, and then he releases a video that basically raises the bar for everybody else, and all of a sudden you have to completely relearn the game because he just changed it again. And it's like, oh man. Don't take this as me fishing for compliments or being down on myself. Like, I'm competent at the things that I do. It's just that everybody is jealous about the things that they wish that they were good at. And being more funny is a thing that I really wish I was able to do. Yeah, there you go. H-Bomber Guy videos always break the meta. That is for sure. Alright, what do we got next here? Can you name a piece of technology you think is really cool, even though it's totally obsolete now? When I went to see Dune, I found out that my local cinema had gotten rid of the old arcade cabinets in the lobby, and it made me kind of sad because those are the last still working machines I'd seen in years with CRT screens. I know CRTs are inferior to modern LCDs in almost every way, but I still think CRTs are cool because of how they work. I mean, they create an image by shooting a beam of particles at a screen at 10% the speed of light. Yeah. There's a whole YouTube channel that does, that kind of talks about how, like really clever things that are in old technology. Let me just find the name of it for you. It's a really big YouTube channel, so you probably already heard of it, but just in case you haven't, I'll find it for you. He's the only guy who's ever gotten me to watch a like hour-and-a-half long video about dishwashers. So I'll give you that as like a hint. I gotta find the name of the channel though. I think he like went viral for making a video about why brown isn't a real color. Brown is a fake color. If someone knows, Technology Connections, that's the name of the channel. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the one. Yeah. Technology Connections is sort of like the whole channel is like an ode to really cool old technology. All hail Sobek. Yeah, that's another thing that I really love. Those like Thought Slime and H-Bomber guys specifically, how they're so good at making things that then become memes. What's it called? I enjoy that. I would love to have that power. Why is brown fake? Brown isn't actually a color. Is the thing, Laura? It's just dark orange. You can't make a brown colored light. Brown looks orange out of context. It's very wild. Like you can't make it, yeah, like you can't make like a brown colored light. And that sort of is the reason why brown is not really a color. But to answer this question, I still think that the, so this'll date me very hardcore. So now this is where you guys get to call me a super boomer. But, I really love analog photography. When I was in high school, we were still doing analog photography. So in grade 11 and 12, I took photography class, and I did like the actual stuff, like where you take the film out of the reel by using this sort of like reel device while putting your hands inside a black bag so you can get it in. And then you put it in the container and you develop it like with all the chemicals and stuff like that. And then you go to the actual Photoshop. Disposable cameras. No. Just like cameras that used film. So like I remembered going, like I did stuff where I did photography where like we went into a dark room and there were like projectors, and you could do like, double exposures and burning and dodging to make the photo better. And then you would go take the photo paper and you'd put it in the developer and put it in the stopper and put it in the wash, and then you dry it off. Like, oh man, I love doing that shit. It's been like, God, it's been like 15 years since the last time I've been in a dark room, but I love that technology. It makes me I love it so much. You're not a boomer, just a hipster. Yeah. I just love, I don't know. I had a lot of fun. I use Photoshop all the time. I love visual aesthetics and like photo, blocking everything like that. I still do it in a digital format. I'm talking to a digital camera right now that cost me $800. So obviously I like photography. But there was just something I really have in my heart that I love about when photography used to be much more of a hands-on process. Did you keep it legit and actually take pics of the popular kids? I don't even remember what I took pictures of, honestly. To me, the pictures didn't matter that much. I just loved the process of using the actual Photoshop, like actually photoshopping pictures in like on the projector, and doing just doing the chemical baths and stuff like that, and like the smell. Because when you go into, because like the stopper on a camera is it's vinegar. So every time you go into the Photoshop, it smells like vinegar. And I just remembered like being like, because I had my classes, like photography class was always in the mornings. It was first period, so it was the first thing you did in the morning. And I would be like in the dark room, 8:30 in the morning, just the dark with the red lights and just smelling vinegar and talking about talking about our day and talking about stuff with our friends, because all of our friends were in the class. And there was a one-way mirror that went to the other room, which was the room where you did the developer stuff, like where you developed film. And we would go and bang on the window to scare the people who were like reeling their film onto the film reels and stuff like that. It was so great. Oh man, I'm getting real nostalgic for Darkroom. Did you ever get into films and movies? I mean, I never went to film school, but I mean, like, I literally make videos for a living, so I guess something. Sounds like you're the same age. Darkrooms are brilliant and Ruddy scary because of a couple of RR. Yeah, I graduated high school in 2006. And, yeah, I love the Darkroom. Oh, also, then there in the second year, we got into color projection, where you had to go to this special room where they had color projectors to imprint on the film paper, the photo paper. It was a whole thing. And also, we would buy this pack of photo paper and keep it in our lockers, and it would be black. I remember if you fell out of your locker and you got paper everywhere, you basically ruined all of your paper and you had to go buy another one. So. Anyways, so that's the one. It's got a lot of memory tied to it, basically, is why. Does trial by jury make sense in a society as bigoted and reactionary as the U.S.? So whatever you think about the Rittenhouse judge, in the end, he did agree to instruct the jury that the self-defense doesn't apply if you initiate the conflict, and apparently they decided they don't give a fuck. Presumably because the jury is composed of small-town Americans who have fixed views on left-wing protesters. Unless you just say you can't be on the jury if you're white, I'm not sure if it'd be possible to ever get a jury from Kenosha, Wisconsin to convict in a case like this. You definitely, I think the option of a tribunal type thing would be, Canada has a mixed system. But yeah, I mean, trial by jury is a complex system because, yeah, it does just build on the bigotry of people, and it's pretty impossible to... Or it's to the point where it's strategic now, jury selection and stuff like that is weaponized in order to get certain people off on certain things. So, have you seen Radical Review's video on Rittenhouse? I was surprised he was happy with the verdict. Oh God, that's depressing. Yeah, there's this is the thing, there's a bunch of left-wing people who have just become absolute, just really just buying into this, I don't know, they're just going full fucking Nazbol over this fucking teenager murdering people. It's fucking annoying. All right. Let's see what we got next. Suppose it's the future and some kind of natural disaster is going to make it so large animals can't live on Earth's surface for centuries. Most of the human race is going to be evacuated to space habitats. In a situation like that, what would we do with uncontacted tribes? Probably move them. You'd have to. I don't know what we would do. We'd probably have to... There would definitely be some, like, serious culture shock, that's for sure. But I imagine that, like, their culture being destroyed and them living is more important than them just dying, I think. Didn't I warn you about red browning earlier in the year? I warned everybody about red browning like as early as like November of 2020. And finally, I do polls to choose what video topics I'm going to do. And it's looking like in April of 2022, I'm going to be doing my red browning video, finally. So... that makes me happy. Because it's something I've been really wanting to talk about. My next few videos is going to be wild. I think they probably move themselves. The water started to rise. Well, I think this kind of situation is more like if like a meteor was going to hit the Earth or something. What would we do? Should small kids be aware of how precarious the need for money makes life? My parents have always had good jobs, so when I was a little kid, I thought money as something my parents had an effectively unlimited amount of that they'd occasionally give me a little bit of if I wanted a video game or something. There's a Twitch streamer I follow who's a young mother, and he's fairly close to the edge financially. The other day, he told me that their daughter is very aware of the importance of money because of that. I kind of suspect that kids are going to grow up in a lot more class conscious than me, but I had a way more carefree childhood. Yeah, class. As somebody who like our marriage, my wife and I came from different class backgrounds. We definitely have different approaches to money and think about it in different ways. That was like a thing we had to kind of work out as we started living together. So. This is not wrong. That the way that you the economic conditions you grow up in affect class. Should kids worry about class? I mean, they should be aware of it, just like they should be aware of all of the bigotries of the world. Obviously, you want to ease them into it, but and also like fiscal literacy is an important skill to teach kids too. And then, but like, yeah, like the myth of capitalism should definitely be like, all person aside. But, as someone who is, 2, perhaps 1 month away from having a kid, this is weighing on my mind, I'm about a month and a half away from having my first kid, so this kind of stuff is stuff that I'm gonna have to think about. It's definitely weighing on me, because like one of the things that kind of was always holding me up is that because I'm a millennial, my kid's gonna grow up in a financial situation that is less well off than I was. Like my parents were reasonably well off. Like my parents are like, kind of like PMC upper middle class types. And I'm growing up, kind of a big step down from where my parents are at. And so, yeah, and I'm going to be worried about that. So we'll see where that goes. People don't treat kids with enough respect. I agree. A lot of the time, they are more socially conscious than their parents. Be honest, if gentle with kids. That's my entire plan. It's my entire like, you know, battle plan for raising my kid is to just treat him like a person. You know, different levels of being able to understand things based on age, but at the end of the day, treating him like a person and coming from the position of giving advice instead of commands. I bet my parents didn't have a YouTube channel, yeah. Also, Marxists have to be very good parents because if you don't, they turn into shitty neoliberals. I don't know if you noticed that like Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg both have Marxist fathers, and now they're shitty. So you gotta make sure they don't turn into neoliberals. How are you and Mrs. Stepback approaching gender with your kid? Well, I mean, I will say that we are just because of the sake of, like, you know, social lubrication. We're gonna assign his, like, he's gonna be assigned male at birth. That's just how it goes. We're kind of not really in a period of history where I think you can really do otherwise, but obviously that's going to be like with the lightest of fucking touches. Like, we're not doing anything to, like, we're going to pretty long lengths to make sure that nothing is going to, that nothing that we do is going to be specifically gendered, and we're going to try very hard to avoid it. And of course, if he decides that the gender assigned at birth does not, you know, follow along with what he's going for, back at 100%. That's my take on it. And I'll be behind him whatever he wants to do in that regard. That's about all, though. But with the people who are my friends, the people that he's gonna grow up around, he's gonna, like, what's it called? He's gonna know people all over the spectrum of gender and sexual orientation and just different types of backgrounds and everything like that. Like, I have a very diverse group of friends here in London, so I think he's gonna grow up with. He's gonna be all right. I think how you socialize him will be more important than the pronouns you use. I think so too. And yeah, if he wants his pronouns to change, I'll do it. 1 second. What do I think of Tulsi Gabbard's heel turn? I think it's part of this greater thing. Like I said, I've been brewing this video on Red Browning lately, and Tulsi Gabbard was always very concerning, but this new one is going to be, you know, pretty intense. Do I play D&D online or IRL? Both. I have right now. I kind of have 3 D&D groups that are going. One of them, or 2 of them, are online, and one of them is in person. But one meets every week and is ending tomorrow. I have a D&D campaign ending tomorrow that I'm running. I have to run the final boss fight tomorrow. And then I have another game that I run with a bunch of Kelly's friends. That runs every 2 weeks that we just had last night. And then we have an in-person game with a bunch of my friends that's on an ad hoc schedule, which means that after every session we do a doodle poll to decide when the next session's going to be. Yeah. Babe-proof the house and babe-proof the baby. You won't think of everything, and that's okay. Yeah, like, I'm not really into reading all the books and stuff like that. I'm gonna feel it out. I'm gonna do my best, but yeah. Hope it'll be okay. It's gonna happen. At the moment, the only thing I really need to worry about in his case soon, is giving him food and giving him food and cleaning him and changing his diaper is going to be like pretty much all I really need to do to win at parenting in the first few months. So I think I'll be good on that. If Bernie played D&D, what class would you roll? Oh man, he'd be a paladin. He's so dedicated to ideals and causes that paladin would work. So many of the leftists and libs I follow say they'll be accepting of their kids they turn out to be trans, and I think you're probably going to have a cis kid the same day some evangelical in Texas gives birth to a trans kid. Yeah, that's, no choice on that, right? People come out the way they come out. But, I mean, looking at the studies of different generations, my kid is almost guaranteed. My kid has like a over 50% chance of being LGBTQ plus in some capacity. So, like that is more likely than it is not now. Like something close to 50% of Zoomers are bisexual, and so there's a lot. All right, the last question we got here is, why do pro-capitalists get mad at unions for what they see as being greedy when their whole ideology is predicated on the idea that greed is good? So a few months back, Bastiat made a video about the Frito-Lay strike. Bastiat is a self-described neoliberal centrist, so most of the video was shit. But one part I enjoyed was when his chat started calling the strikers selfish. He asked them why they cared. Like, even if the workers did already have a pretty good deal, they didn't, but just for the sake of argument, why shouldn't they try to get a better deal if they think the pandemic means their dynamics have changed? Like, if the people in the chat are really libertarian in theory, wouldn't that problem? See, the thing is, you're assuming that liberals have a cogent and consistent ideology and aren't just explicitly in the interests of serving the rich. Because liberals don't care about working people. They care about the rich, and they use the language of like freedom and choice and greed is good to justify that. But if it's not being used to justify that, then they don't care. I skipped one? The hosts of one of the lefty lib podcasts, well, they can't be a lefty and a lib, try to make the audience feel less shitty about the Rittenhouse verdict by pointing out that Kyle can basically never have a normal life now. Like, he probably won't be able to go to university or get a regular job. Yeah, he'll just become a right-wing grifter at this point. His one option in life is now to become a right-wing media personality. Yeah. And there's no reason to think he ever wanted that. Do you think that's true? If you do, you think he's particularly bothered by that? If it does make you feel any better about him going into to actual jail, it doesn't make me feel better. He's either going to become a right-wing grifter, or Kyle Rittenhouse comes from a very rich family. So he's going to be fine no matter what. You give it like a fucking year, and most people will have forgotten about Kyle Rittenhouse. Or, more likely, if he really is like finding himself like completely unable to get a job because everybody knows what he did, all he has to do is change his name and dye his hair or something, and all of a sudden, like, that's it. Like, he'll be fine. He's rich, he's white, he's going to have an amazing amazing life full of opportunities forever. And for the most part, the fact that he murdered people is just going to get forgotten and pushed under the table, and no one will ever think about it again. Patriotism is when you kill people. Oh God. So, yeah. So I don't suspect that we're going to see anything. Yeah. I don't feel any better about the fact that his brief ostracization until the media moves on to something else, followed by the things that make him stick out. He's going to what's it called? He's going to just like he could just pay $100 to get his name changed, and it would be like he'd be done. And yeah, he'll probably just get on the right-wing grift train because you don't even have to try that hard, and you can make shit tons of money. Does the fact he talked about BLM positively show he might be bad at the right-wing grifter stuff? I don't know. We'll see. He just got away with murder, so he just needs to he just needs to be like, I got canceled by the woke mob. I'm a Black Lives Matter supporter. But you know what? You killed 2 measly protesters, and all of a sudden you're canceled by the woke mob. I hate this. And then he's gonna go and like get a start a YouTube channel where he talks about cancel culture and woke mobs, and he'll make like $1 billion from like the Coke thing or something. He can't toe the party line. He's just started. Wait until he gets into the grift. And when his, financial life depends on him spouting right-wing talking points like the rest of them. How much you want to bet he just becomes a police officer? Like, that's my guess. He basically looked like he was going to become one, and something makes me think that he's just going to become he's going to be a cop. That's what he wants to do. And trust me, no cops are going to cancel Kyle Rittenhouse and deny him a job just because he murdered black people. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any cops. Or he murdered people. He didn't murder black people. He murdered BLM protesters. So, I don't, his chosen career was police officer, and he's probably just going to end up being one anyway. Really, if anything, all he really did in his, Kyle Rittenhouse in murdering 2 people, all he really did is do what he will do as a cop just before he got the immunity. Shows that white people still have immunity from murder if you kill Black Lives Matter protesters, but yeah. I have to believe there'd be too much of a PR problem for any force. The police forces that are filled with people with the black and white with the blue line American flags and the fucking Punisher skulls on them. No, it'll happen. You just need to wait a year and a half for the media to largely forget about it, and he'll get a job as a cop and no one will care. It's fine. He's probably gonna get a whole bunch of money. He could at this point he could just start an Indiegogo and make several $1 million and live off that for a few years. It'll happen. Probably made a few $100,000 already just for telling a story. Yeah, he'll probably write a book about it and make a fuck ton of money. And what's it called? When frickin' Donald Trump runs for president in 2024, he'll be at his campaign events, and Donald Trump will point at him and be like, "He's so great, isn't he? We love Kyle Rittenhouse, don't we, friends?" And everyone will cheer, and And yeah, what's it called? Yeah. We love him. He's so great. Fuck. And then when, Donald Trump fucking pulls a Grover Cleveland, that's what'll happen. Would what he did, point a gun at people and shoot them when he tried to disarm you, would you claim that was self-defense in Canada? It would not work here in Canada. Plus, also, the weapon that he used is illegal in Canada. He used an AR-15, and AR-15s are against the law here in Canada. Tristan, you look as gutted as I feel. Thank you. My like dark prediction is that Donald Trump is going to successfully pull a Grover Cleveland, that he's going to run for president in 2024, and that he's going to get in trouble with tax. Rich people don't go to jail. Come on, get with the program. He's gonna like blast through the Republican leadership race, and then he's gonna run for president, and he's gonna win. He's gonna get fewer votes than Joe Biden, or whatever absolute fucking black hole of charisma they run for the Democratic Party, and he's gonna win. He's gonna win because either every swing state has sends competitive electors to the Electoral College, and the Supreme Court is very right-wing, so throws out all of the states' results that don't conform to the Republican turnout, and all of the states that were close are going to have passed all of these really harsh voter restriction laws that will flip all of the states anyway, and yeah. I'm making a whole video on the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, or the Kyle Rittenhouse. It's not so much. It's about what the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict says about American culture and specifically about the sort of structures and psychological reasons we keep a white supremacist system going. Even if it makes no material, doesn't sound like fuck the U.S. I want to be someone else. Does that make any sense? Maybe. If you just don't want to see Donald Trump on the TV, that makes sense. Pete Buttigieg, maybe. Yeah. Ha. That. Oh man. You want an article that put me into fucking hardcore doomer mode in the last few weeks? It was that article where a bunch of Democratic Party insiders have kind of quietly are talking about how the future of the Democratic Party is either Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg. And I was just like, oh, fuck. That is the worst possible thing I could ever hear. The Republicans are going to control the United States for 10,000 years. Fuck. I can't even think of a Wojak fucked up enough to describe how I felt about that. It's pretty cool that Sinema and Manchin were able to secure a Trump victory for him. They should get cabinet positions as a reward. Oh, Johnny D. That is so adorable. If you don't think that... what's it called? If you don't think that Sinema and Manchin aren't doing exactly what the Democratic Party is telling them to do, because what the Democrats need to campaign on and what their rich donors want are diametrically opposed to each other because they have vastly different class interests. So Manchin and Sinema put on with probably the exchange of some nice campaign donations or possibly a nice cushy job after they're done being in politics, after they leave the Senate. They were told to just be obstinate and block every single part of the legislation in order to make sure that Joe Biden can look like he's trying to do stuff, or the Democrats in general can look like they're trying to do progressive stuff without actually having to do anything. It's the oldest game in the book. All right, it's 9 o'clock. Let's go raid Lumiru. Yeah, Lumi's good value. But yeah, 4 more of these left until I take a break for a few months. So yeah, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and yeah, I'll see you on Monday.
Of her mother.
What?
I keep hearing about these political parties, but there's never any cake.
Welcome in. We're descending into hell. For my love.
Senua. Look at me.
Do you hear them? They're calling for me.
We've lost so many. And I've lost my father. I can't lose you.
You said it. I have blood on my hands.
I didn't say that. You've done nothing wrong.
Someone was right. Everyone will suffer.
Zimbel is a fake. He is a hateful, bitter liar. He's poison. His words still haunt you. Who do you trust? Him? Or me? Do you still believe in me, Senua? In us?
I don't
Oh
want to be
shoot.
a power couple.
Ha! YouTube.